We're on my land in Saanich. It's where the word Saanich comes from. Saanich means raised up or high bluff or emerging. The sound, like blowing out a candle, is at the beginning of that. It's like the people of, the place of, or the breath of. It's kind of the breath of when you come down to it. Saanich. And so we're in the raised up place. We're in the farthest southwest village in Saanich. Anglicized as Sartlip. A lot of people say Tarslip. It's actually Tarslip. Yeah, which is a longer story. Yeah, my family's been here a very long time. Yeah, I've always loved the Christmas rain. I've always loved rain. It's just been something in my lifetime, right? Throughout my life. And my best friend, one of my very best friends who passed away just before COVID, when we met, he just didn't believe I loved the rain. He thought it was insane. And I really just find it distasteful when people complain about the rain. Particularly, for one, our creation stories, we started with rain. We came down in the rain. But more than that, even before that, I was really indoctrinated into that way of thinking as a child. I always loved the rain. And when you think about it further, on a real logical note, this planet's going to run out of water before it runs out of sunshine. We should really have more appreciation for it, I think. At Denman Island, which is quite a while ago now, I was doing a poetry reading and sitting in on a panel. I was on a panel with Nancy Turner, the ethnobotanist. Richard and I got talking at the dinner with the organizers and the funders. Really nice cheeses and wines and all that stuff, and it's a bunch of strong-willed, strong-minded people who write for a living, people who are in the literary world in some manner, and it's sometimes nice to find a lifesaver in the crowd. So Richard and I got talking, and it was smooth and it was non-pretentious. And, there was a point at where it was the big discussion at the table. I remember. I happened to agree this time, but sometimes those kind of talks can go in a direction where I'm kind of like, oh guys, get over yourselves, please get over yourselves. And it was about cell phones because we were trying to remember we'd be trying to remember something, and everyone would get their cell phones out to get what we were looking for. And we decided no more cell phones. If you needed your phone, you didn't know it. And I still don't own a cell phone and refuse to. I don't want to own a credit card because I'm enjoying my debt-free life, but that's getting harder with the amount of travel I have done and I'm going to be doing again, because it's, you need that for your pre-auth on the hotel rooms. Yeah, well, my attitude towards cell phones right from the beginning, from the early days, trying to explain it to people, I'll have my phone on me so you can get in touch with me and all that stuff. It was like, it's like being young enough to be excited about moving in with your girlfriend because you're going to get to see her all the time. But then the problem is you get to see her all the time. And then what if it's an emergency? In my mind as well, my mind goes to what would happen in the old days. You found out some way, right? And I assure everybody out there, I assure everybody out there that if it's bad news, you're gonna know it too soon, and if it's good news, you'll know in time. There's no hurry in me about that kind of stuff. Yeah, I did a poetry reading. I think it was right around when my second book, Little Hunger, came out. Yeah, so they invited me over and did that panel because they figured they had three interesting individuals culturally whose work was based around the land around Denman and on the island, and what they considered locally, but Denman's out of my territory. Yeah, it worked out, because I speak the language of colonization and decolonization a lot, often enough, and speak with people who are knowledgeable in those fields often enough that I was a fit, as a Saanich person up in somebody else's territory. I was a fit on that panel. Nancy Turner's first teacher was my grandfather. just down over here. His house was there, and she had been asking around because I think she's American, if I'm not wrong, and she came here and wanted to connect with local people about knowledge. And they said, well, go talk to Philip Hall. That was my father. That's also my name, but I don't go by it. And he said, oh yeah, well, my dad might visit with you, you know. And that depends on the person. They can show up once and get turned off of it. It's not what they thought it was going to be, and they just disappear. Or they show up and they're not easy to deal with because they're full of assumptions, you know, and they're not actually authentically curious. You know, I talk about authentic curiosity a lot in my work and in my conversations, where it's my girlfriend comes into the room, for instance, and I have the vacuum pulled apart. I paid $1,200 for the vacuum, you know, 15 years ago, and it's an expensive vacuum part. I have it pulled apart. She knows I'm not mechanically inclined, you know. She comes around the corner and she says, "What are you doing?" Okay, grammatically that's a question, and it's actually framed as a question, but there's no curiosity in it. There's accusation, there's fear, there's anger, there's all kinds of things. So what Saanich people did really well was live from their authentic curiosity at all times. We were non-presumptive people. And the settlers that came here had no curiosity. And so what does it mean to reawaken that authentic curiosity in yourself when you look at anything? You know, you look at a stone, you find out because it has these minerals in it that it's granite. You find granite's made out of these two minerals, you know. It's this type of granite, and you think you're piercing it, you're knowing it better when you're actually backing up from it. And you stop knowing it as a stone. It's in its stoneness. You know, you forget its innocence. You corrupt its innocence by pulling it apart that way.
Is it kind of like by categorizing it,
or
like putting a name in it?
Or deconstructing it like a poem? You know, trying to know the poem through its deconstruction rather than what it is as a whole. What it's, you know. Nancy Turner went down there. She had the right kind of curiosity to be around my grandpa, who taught her everything, you know, quite a lot of ways. He couldn't teach her cultural things because you just don't do that. You don't invite somebody who doesn't know the culture into your most sacred parts, because you can once you pull apart something, once you demolish something or desecrate something that's sacred, there's no gaining its sacredness back. And so you give them some tools that point towards it, but you have to be in the culture for for many generations to be adequate to handle the sacred stuff, you know. And so she taught her about plants, and she took it on in the way she could understand it, and has done a very good job. They asked her, you know, how did you get into this field? And I said, I can answer that. You know.